Hello and welcome to Real Chat with Kat, the podcast dedicated to igniting your entrepreneurial spirit and empowering you to conquer new horizons. In this podcast, we chat with inspiring entrepreneurs on their journey to success through some amazingly insightful and expansive conversations. These episodes thrive on thought-provoking chats where our guests fearlessly explore their path to success, sharing their experiences, failures, and triumphs. No topic is off limits as we deep dive into the talked about and not so talked about pieces it takes to build a business, overcome limiting beliefs, deal with personal struggles, and everything in between that shapes our lives and our businesses. I'm your host, Kat Polsonelli, creator and founder at The Lotus Effect, where we believe that success is not just about strategies and tactics, it's about cultivating a powerful mindset and creating customized business operations that align with you and your true purpose. Whether it's mastering time management, improving productivity, enhancing leadership skills, or simply fostering a growth-oriented mindset, we'll provide you with the tools and strategies to flourish in both your business and personal life. I'm so excited to have you join us today in this episode, so get ready to feel empowered and inspired as we learn together and from one another on how to rise above challenges, break through limitations, and unlock our full potential. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of Real Chat with Kat. I am so excited to have you here with me today, and I have such a phenomenally bubbly guest. I am so excited to bring Deb into everything. So thank you all for tuning in today, and Deb, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today.
Oh my gosh, I am so honored to be part of your podcast, and I think we are sisters from another mother. We definitely hit it off, and so I am so looking forward to our chat. We're going to have a great conversation.
Oh my gosh, it's going to be wonderful. So many similarities, so many overlaps. You're a beautiful person, Deb. So as we dive into the podcast, please do us all a favor then, and let's just start with, who you are and what it is that you do, and then what kind of got you into this space, because you have a beautiful story.
Well, thank you so much. I have my own business, have had it for over 30 years. I need to look that up again, right? It's called Wise Women Communications. It's a marketing and PR firm. I love what I do. I love working with my clients. I have a podcast called The Business Power Hour, all sorts of fun stuff like that. And then back in 2015, I got one of those curveballs. Those things that happen. I had gone for my annual physical, had my mammogram, and I don't think I was even home when they called and said, you got to come back. Now, many years ago, probably before you were born, I worked for the American Cancer Society and for an oncologist. So I know just enough about all of this to be dangerous. They say words, I'm like, oh, that's not a good word. And so I knew getting called back was probably not a good thing. Turns out what I had was microcalcifications, not a lump, not a bump, not anything like that. The computer actually saw it. They are so small that the human eye can't see it. I, of course, dashed to Dr. Google, because what do we do when we go to Dr. Google?
Of course.
And Dr. Google informs me that most women of a certain age have these things. Happens when your hormones change in your body. And the vast majority of the time, absolutely no problem. But because I'm a special person, mine were starting to coalesce and clump together, which is not a good thing. So, but at that point, they said stage 0, which means don't worry about it. I did get a surgeon, and met with her a couple of times. This went on over, the course of several months. I didn't even get an oncologist because everybody said, you aren't going to need it. Had several really fun biopsies, and learned to tell people, no, I need some more of the happy stuff. Or worse, there were a couple of things where I'm like, y'all have to knock me out, or at least sedate me, because for me to stay perfectly still for some of these, no, not going to
Oh,
happen. I mean, and, I can stay still for like 20 seconds and then I'm done. I get the wiggles. I'm, 3 years old. Right. And, so, she was, we were just going merrily along, and she finally said, you know what, let's go ahead and pull some lymph nodes. And so went in, that was obviously, surgery. And everybody got the surprise and shock of their life when 8 of 12 lymph nodes were positive. The cancer had already spread to them. And so that meant I was stage 3, just poof, right there. Right. And then, it was like, oh my gosh, we need to do this. So, got an oncologist who I absolutely love. And, met with her, and she said, we need to hit this hard, because these little bigglies are floating throughout your body. This is not just that you have breast cancer. This has spread. So and I decided, and partially this was my background, to do the traditional approach. One of the things I tell people is you absolutely positively have to decide what is best for you. And for some people, they're not going to do chemo. They're not going to do surgery, and that's perfectly fine. As long as they understand, and are educated. But I decided, I was like, okay, well, we're going to do chemo, then we'll do surgery, then we'll do radiation. And so, I had a port put in my shoulder. Those are really fun. I actually still have my port because I'm still in treatment. And so I have this thing in my shoulder that, when I fly, they're like, what is that? I'm like, and so you have a little card, right? Like because it shows up when they x-ray. And so she did 8 different drugs in one day. Wow. Very entertaining. I discovered that Jimmy John's delivers because, I was in the infusion room for about 9 hours. And so, go home feeling good. It was around Halloween. We had trick-or-treaters. I had a great time. And then a couple of days later, I started feeling kind of bleh. And I was thinking, okay, well, I just had massive chemo, so I should feel bleh. Yeah. Right. But then the blah turned into, oh, this is not what it should be. We called in and they said, oh, they know. And before we could bundle me up and get me to the doctor, things took a turn very quickly, and had to call an ambulance, had to call the fire department to get me down the stairs. That was a fun little thing. We we're on our way to the hospital, and we live like 5 minutes from the hospital. And it was so funny because I remember we stopped, and I was like this the entire time, just jibber jabber, right? And so I'm like, why are we stopping? And he said, well, it's a stoplight. And I said, I don't get lights and sirens. And the next thing I know, it's hours later. I mean, it was like fun.
Oh my gosh.
And it was like, and I did get lights and sirens. But what ended up happening was I got a complication that less than 1% of people get, because I'm special. And at that point in time, and it still may be the case, I don't know, but at that point in time, I was the only person who ever survived it, because people didn't know this is not what should be happening. And by the time they figured it out, it was too late. And so I went into septic shock. And that's very bad for you. The stats are about 75% of the time you don't survive. And what it does is it attacks your internal organs with a massive infection. And my kidneys have never been the same. They're like, no, we don't like this. But I had emergency surgery, spent 7 weeks in the hospital, in and out of ICU, in and out of having surgery, all this good stuff. Finally got home. Things were on the mend. And so we thought, okay, well, let's go ahead and do the surgery. And I had chosen to do a double mastectomy. I'm old. I didn't need those anymore. And I also chose not to do reconstruction, for a variety of reasons, but it was like, no. I did meet with a plastic surgeon. That was one of the most mortifying things I have ever done. And I mean, he was incredibly professional, nothing against him or anything like it. It was just like one of the things they did was with calipers, right? These, they measured my stomach fat to see if there was enough that they could use that to do my reconstructive surgery.
Oh,
And I
wow.
thought, because that is one of the options, is you can have your own body stuff.
Okay.
And so, but yeah, I mean, just that was like, no, I don't want to do this. Got a complication from that surgery that my surgeon had never seen, because again, I'm like, and we did try chemo again, had the same complication, but this time we knew what it was. And, I still had to spend a week in the hospital because I was on really powerful IV antibiotics, but nothing bad at all. And then, I just started back into living my life. And the entire time, or for most of the time, I worked. It gives you something to think about. That's one of the things, that people all, they stress about. If you can work, because it will give you something to think about. And so, just kind of went merrily along. Lots of other surgeries. There've been all sorts of things. But I did, a couple of years ago when I was in the doctor, I said, hey, I got this thing on my arm. And they took one look at it. Away I go to the dermatologist.
Gosh.
And I had basal cell carcinoma, which is actually does not spread, easy to treat. He zapped it. It's right above my tattoo that is part of this whole journey thing. And I was like, now don't you be messing that up. But now I get to do the strip and spin every 6 months, right?
Oh, nice.
And then last year, you got to have a sense of humor.
The strip and spin. I'm sorry. It's going to be in my head for the rest of my life.
And I have told him that, my poor dermatologist, and he just shakes his head, and I'm like, hi, I'm here for my strip and spin. And they're like, ugh. But I'm like, well, that's what you do. I mean,
True.
Yeah. And so, but then last summer I said, hey, I've got something else going on. They did a CAT scan that turned out to be nothing, but it did show that I had thyroid cancer. And so last summer I had my thyroid removed. It is a new cancer. So I have 3 totally separate cancers.
Wow.
The nice thing with the thyroid was it did affect my voice, which happens some of the time because your thyroid goes around your vocal cords. And so sometimes when they remove it, as they put it, they tweaked my vocal cords. And so I have some issues. I can't sing anymore. And I actually put myself through college singing. So, but it's like, but we caught it so early that I didn't have to have any other treatment.
Nice.
But yeah, and that was another checkbox on my doctor bingo. And I'll get notices, and I'm like, which one are you? Who are you? But yeah, that's been the story of what the journey has been. I had my 34th surgical procedure a couple weeks ago. My scars have scars. When I go in, I'm like, hello, I'm back. They're like, oh my God, she's here again, because they remember me because, not only the red hair, but because of how I behave when I'm there. Like I said, you have to laugh. And I firmly believe that if I can make them laugh, it's even better.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I know, like, with my medical background, the things that you see and the stuff that you go through, and sometimes losing patients and stuff like that, like, there's a lot of the mental and emotional that goes along, especially if you're someone that really, really cares for the patients that you're seeing. I know that I got really attached. And so it was always hard when I was the one that made the call to check in on them. And then I would have the spouse tell me something. So I love that you bring this like sense of joy to it, to also alleviate them of some of the feelings as well. Because it gets heavy. But I have a question for you. And I know that everybody is probably thinking this. You sound like you just took this like a freaking champ, like a breeze, and just like so happy. Have you always been like this uplifted and positive and like it's gonna be okay? Like, I just feel like that would beat you down.
Yeah. I mean, it is annoying. And there are times where I'm just pissed. And you have pity parties. It's that's normal and that's natural. And somebody told me, they said, honor those and give yourself the grace to get through them.
Mm.
When they called, when your doctor calls and you see it in the caller ID, that's never good, right? And so when they called to say, yeah, it was thyroid cancer, I went, well, bad word we can't say. And now, you and I live in the South where people don't swear a lot down here. And so dropping the F-bomb just cracked up my doctor. And she said, that's why you'll get through this. But yeah, it really is just like, oh, this is annoying. But then you go on, and everybody obviously deals with it very differently. And there are times where I really am afraid and scared and all of those things, which is sometimes why I get the jibber jabbers, right? The little nervous type of things. But yeah, I was the kid that on my report card said, will not shut up. Right.
Oh yeah, that was me. I can't. Oh yeah, I've looked at my
Yeah.
report cards and it's always, she talks too much.
Right.
Hasn't changed.
I know. Yeah.
Love it though. And it's such a testament to, in my personal opinion, something that I talk about a lot with people, which is the way that you see things, the way that you handle things, and the way that you stress or decide not to stress about things really does physically affect the way that your body can handle things. And I feel like you are a testament to that, right? I mean, obviously you had wonderful doctors and things like that.
Right.
But there's so many people that have dealt with similar issues. Breast cancer is, is huge, that don't make it this far. And I'm not saying that it's because they just had a negative attitude. There are so many other factors.
But that is part of it.
The body, in my personal opinion, and from what I've read and I understand, like we really do have the ability to heal when we are focused on the positive, when we're focused on moving forward, when we don't allow it to eat up who we truly are. And I think it's such a beautiful testament to the things that you've been through to just share with people. Like more people need to know this. Like, yes, crappy situations happen. Things really freaking suck. We can still have really bad days. And you've got to learn to be able to laugh and know that you can keep going forward. It really does make a difference.
Right. Well, and there's lots of medical studies that have shown the importance of humor, and laughing. It helps your blood pressure. The endorphins, all those various things are definite benefits when you are, dealing with some type of illness.
Yeah. I mean, I immediately thought of, and I cannot think of the name of it. What is it called? Patches. Robin Williams was in it. He was becoming
Patch Adams.
Patch Adams. That's what it was.
Yes.
And that immediately is what I thought of, is that was his thing when he would go in there with the children that had cancer and he would make them laugh and stuff. It's breaking up that pain. It's breaking up that dread that, we do get stuck in, that can really overtake our lives. And so anyway, if you have not seen that movie, you need to go watch it.
Yeah, because he wears the red nose and I know. Plus it's just Robin Williams.
It is. Robin Williams is absolutely wonderful. So tell me now then, since you're through these things, I know you're still doing treatment and stuff like that. What did that do for you with your business as well? Because, I know that that's another thing for people is when things happen, sometimes it's not easy to continue business and we just kind of shut down, or we try to focus on business so much that we make it a priority when in reality, it's just something to kind of, like you said, keep you busy, get you through things. So how did that shift when you were going through some of the stuff that you were dealing with?
Well, I've been very fortunate because I am a consultant rather than an employee, because that's real tricky when you're an employee, because you might be gone, you might run out of PTO. I mean, all sorts of things. And there are federal and state laws that kick in about, disability and all sorts of things. And so that is something that is definitely a challenge for people. But I am so fortunate that all of my clients are absolutely wonderful. I have one primary client who they, and I know as a consultant, you shouldn't do that. Right. But I love them to pieces. And they, every 21 days when I go in for a treatment, I'm down for about 2 days and they know that and they're fine with that. And, when I've had surgery, all of these various things, they have always said, what can we do to help? They're actually where I got my first COVID shot. It was actually my first 2 COVID shots. It was so funny because we couldn't get them. I'm in Georgia and you couldn't get them. My oncologist did not have COVID vaccines.
Wow.
That was kind of where I had assumed I would get it. So, we're just kind of, motoring along. Now, my client manages senior living communities and what's known as private pay. So high-end senior living communities. And, and I do their social media for them is my role with them. And, somewhere along when, COVID was first, really a big fear, they said something, Matt, how are you doing? And I said, well, I'm fine, but it's really weird because I can't get my COVID shot. And the owner said, you remember who you work for, right? And they were having a COVID clinic in one of the assisted living communities. I trotted my little self down there. I signed the form that said I was an employee. And that's where I had my first vaccine and then my first booster. And my oncologist was just floored. She was like, you went where? And yeah, I mean, it was, but yeah, they were like, no, you're part of us. We need to take care of you.
Oh, I love that. But it sounds like you also have figured out what I would call the secret, which isn't really a secret, but I feel like it takes a lot of people to learn, which is putting the right people in your space that not only you can support them, but they want to support you. And I think that
most definitely,
to me, especially in the entrepreneurial space, that is one of the most beautiful situations to be in. And I want more people to understand that you can have clients like that. I have so many like that where I give them grace and they give me grace when it's needed. Have you always found that you find yourself in other people's, like the good graces, or did you have to learn to set boundaries? And
you have to learn. I think we've all had clients where we went, no, and the tricky thing when you're dealing with this is wondering how they're going to react. They could have just as easily told me, in a good way, you need to focus on healing, or they could have said, you're not going to be able to do the work.
Yeah,
that's not what they did. But yeah, I've had clients where this is not working, or, even it's some of the initial meetings thinking, no, this is just not a good fit. And then you gently give them to somebody else. Right. But that is, I think, one of the challenges, especially when you're first starting out in business, right? Where you're thinking, I got bills, I got to pay. And so you want to, in many cases, work with whoever. But one of the things you have to figure out is setting those boundaries, who's going to respect them, setting the boundaries for yourself. When I started my business, that was one of the things, because, it was like, I work 24/7. And then I finally realized, no, I don't. And so I would tell my clients, I have office hours. They are from this to this. Now that, changes with different time zones and all sorts of things, right? But the way I worked it was I told them, I am more than happy to work during an emergency, evenings, weekends, holidays, but it will cost you double. And no one has ever said, we want you to, they're all like, oh yeah, no, it can wait. And so, I mean, that's but yeah, we as the business owner have to set and keep our own boundaries.
I love that. And I love that you put your value up front as an expectation so that they understood, I'm more than happy to help. However, this is my valuable time. And therefore there is going to be an extra charge to that. I think that's beautiful, because I think that a lot of people, especially women that I've seen in the entrepreneurial space, have a really hard time with seeing their own value and their own worth.
And we want to please.
Yeah. So how do you feel like, were you just kind of came out like that? Or do you feel like it took a little bit of like building up to be able to get to that space where you really knew your value?
It was tricky, because, it really was one of those things where you had to kind of learn. Now, my mother, who passed away in March, was a very strong, very independent woman who, even when I was young, would say, no, you need to stand up for yourself, because she did. and sometimes she might have stood up a little too much, right? But she, but I did see that from her, that, you had to stand on your own 2 feet. And, I didn't get married until I was 30, because that was something that, it was just not, and I am technically a baby boomer. And a lot of the people that I grew up with, the women especially, that was one of the first things. And for many of them that worked out absolutely fabulous, but for others it didn't. And so I have a friend who, she posted on Facebook the other day that she was celebrating, now this is going to kind of give away my age, her 43rd wedding anniversary. She married her high school sweetheart. Aww. And it has been just, and I have several classmates like that. So that's just absolutely lovely. But I think a lot of times, it was, oh my gosh, we feel society's pressure to get married and start a family. And my mom was, no, nuh-uh, you're going to college and you're going to get a job. And I'm like, okay. Yes, mom.
I
yes,
love that. You had such a strong woman behind you, because you're right. I talk about this a lot with my clients and on speeches and stuff, that like, there are so many societal beliefs that we put on ourselves, like that stupid timeline of you're supposed to be married by this age and know your career and right? I was in that generation. I was, even when I had my son at 16 and graduated a year early, I went straight into college. That's what you were supposed to do. You went to college, you got a good degree, and you got a job, point blank, period. And here I am now, my boys are 20 and 16, and I'm telling my kids, don't go to college if you don't know what you want to do. Like, wait,
or there's different things to study. There's trade schools. There's all sorts of different things that they can study.
Yeah. And I told them, I was like, don't worry about being in a relationship at a really young age. Like, enjoy yourself, figure out who you are, because I didn't get a chance to do that. I thought I knew who I was. And I put myself, in a relationship that completely destroyed the identity I thought I had. Now it's beautiful, because I've gotten to redefine what that identity is. And I'm a whole new person. And I don't want my children to have to do the same thing. I want them to be able to figure that out a little bit earlier. If I would have known me and had my own standards, I think there were a lot of things that I would have valued myself for, and therefore put up bigger boundaries. Whereas, like you said, a lot of women, we people please, we want to help, we want to nurture. And that became my identity, because I didn't know anything else.
Right. Well, and I love that you were able to get out of that bad situation, that horrible situation, because now your sons know that is not acceptable. But you were able to, and of course, we know so many women that aren't able to get out of those situations. And it breaks your heart, because we, of course, go, oh, you should get out. But, no, I mean, there, but the fact that you are so strong that you were able to do that is absolutely incredible.
No, thank you. I think that, I never really understood the phrase of, sometimes people go through certain things for certain reasons, like there's lessons and things behind that. And it wasn't until I really started figuring out more about me, and then how healing myself could actually heal my children, that I realized, oh my gosh, I went through this so that I could break the cycle of how my family has done things for generation. Now my children get to have these healing tools at such a young age. And because I am extremely talkative, I now get to share it with the world. I'm not going to keep my mouth shut. And to me, I'm like, that's a beautiful testament to what I went through, because I was one of those people for a really long time. It was like, you just leave. Like, why don't you? But being through it, it's like, oh my gosh, there's so many other layers to it. There's so much psychology to it.
So complicated.
It really is. And I'm like, if I can help people understand that on a better level, maybe we can change some things in the way that our world has been done. And it sounds like that's kind of what you have done with your story as well. And the way that you talk about it and share it is like, there is another way to do it. It doesn't have to be all doom and gloom.
Right. Yeah. My business coach talked me into starting an initiative. And she said, you didn't go through everything you went through without using it to help others. And I'm like, but I don't want to be cancer girl. But I was already being called in to help. right? And I would, when my doctors would have students, I would talk to the students, or if they had a new patient, they would have me talk to the new patient, things like that. And so we started tryingnottodie.LIVE. It's been about 2.5 years ago. And it is all about helping anyone who's on the cancer journey, whether it's themselves or someone they support. How are we going to help them through this process and empower them and give them the tools to really get through it? And sometimes that's, a short-term thing. Things happen, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes it's also, one of the coolest things, we have a Facebook group, and, I love it when people post, I went in for my checkup and I was clear. Right? Isn't that just absolutely fantastic? But then somebody else posts, lost my husband today. And then the Facebook group is all about support. But, how can we help others who are on this journey? And some of it are the medical people. I counted up the other day. I think I have decided not to work with 8 doctors along this process. And none of them were bad doctors. It was just, they weren't serving me the way I needed to be served. And that's tricky because, they're doctors, they're God. No, they're not. They're people. And the doctors that I like the most are obviously the ones who get me. But they're the ones who really understand and have empathy. And that is very difficult. I mean, you mentioned it earlier. When you are a medical care provider, you are dealing with such heavy stuff sometimes, and they can't be totally empathic, or they couldn't survive. But they still need to understand what we're going through. And I've had doctors who have blown me off. And I'm like, oh no, I might know more about this than you do. And doctors who just didn't treat me with the respect that I thought that they should be. And there's enough doctors out there. Pick your team that is going to support you the most. And some of that might be telling them, I'm going to do some alternative type of things also. And if they're not going to support that, then they're not going to support you. So find somebody who will.
Oh, I love that. Like, that's such a powerful statement, because that in itself can be used on so many levels, right? Yes. Find your team, find your tribe, find your support
tribe.
system,
Yes.
Find your tribe. And it comes from being able to value yourself and knowing that what is important to you should align with the people that are working with you, that are mentoring you, that are taking care of you. It should align with that. And I love that. And thank you so much for saying that, because I do feel like, especially being in the medical field, that a lot of people do take the word as God, and being on the other side, I learned, oh no, I can choose, because you do not understand what I'm saying, which is, I think it's empowering as well, because again, you're putting yourself first, which, to be completely honest, we all should. And whether we believe it or not, I do feel like we all know ourselves and know our bodies better than any doctor. So while they can give us feedback, if we are really present with that, then we can say, I don't think I agree with that. And it's not to be rude or tell them that they're wrong, but you can understand. I know I've learned that over the last several years of like, no, I think I'm going to wait on this one. I think I'm actually feeling this.
Right. And it is so important to be standing up for yourself. And if you're not able to, then you need somebody else who can. I mean, I spent a lot of time in and out of ICU, pretty much out of it. My husband knew exactly what to do. And he knew what I wanted, and so that was what was so important too, was having those advocates that are there. And one of the things I tell people is, when you go to your first big appointment, right, where they're saying, okay, the statistics say, and you're going to have this and that, and you as the cancer, and I call them warriors, right? We are not patients. We're warriors, because it's the fight for our life. And so when you are in there, our brain shut off when somebody said, hey, you have cancer. I don't know what to ask. I don't know, and I'm not going to pay attention. You need somebody else who is there with you. They've got the list of questions. They're taking notes. They're making sure that all the questions are answered. And, one of the reasons I love my oncologist, now they are a big practice with multiple locations. I don't even know how many doctors are there, but they have a sign in every exam room door. And it's on the inside. And it says, do not leave this office if all your questions have not been answered.
Oh, I love that.
I know. And I've been known to call them back because I've thought of something. Oh, yeah. Or to stop in and say, hey, I've got this question. And we should never think we're bothering them, because they're going to be able to treat us better if we're honest with them and asking all of our questions. And so it is a team that we are building, or a tribe, like we're warriors, but warriors don't stand alone. We have to have our tribes around us.
Oh my gosh. That's like such a beautiful note to just end on. Like, we just cut it right there. We're done. Although I could talk to you forever, Deb. I absolutely adore you.
So much fun.
As we kind of come to a close, your story is incredible, and the amount of positivity and push that you have, it's just like, it just radiates. It's infectious. So I love this about you.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for sharing. And I know that you have already done so much for so many people out there, and I'm so excited to see what you continue to do. So I have one more question for you, and that is, do you happen to have a quote or a piece of advice you would like to leave the audience with?
Somebody sent me this right when I first was diagnosed, and it says, fate says to the warrior, you cannot withstand the storm. And the warrior responds, I am the storm.
Oh, I got chills. I know. That is beautiful. What a testament. Deb, you are amazing.
Thank you.
It's been wonderful chatting with you. Please do me a favor. Tell everybody where they can find you. How can they connect with you? How can they be in your world?
Perfect. I love it. Well, again, thank you so much. This has been such a great conversation, and I am truly honored to have been a guest. The website is www.tryingnottodie.LIVE, because we are living, we're not dying. And there's links on there to connect with me. There's the link to our private Facebook group. I encourage anybody who wants to be part of that group, just jump in. And we do try and be very inspirational and have fun with it, but there are times where it is serious. But yeah, tryingnottodie.LIVE is the website.
I think it's the best thing ever. I just love it. It's so simplistic, but to the point. Just, we don't have to beat around the bush. It is what it is. Deb, again, I can't thank you enough for everything that you've provided to the audience today, and so much encouragement and inspiration to those that are dealing with some difficult situations. And so I want to thank you so much.
Thank you
for being a part of the podcast today. And to everybody else that's out there, don't worry. We'll make sure we have that information in the show notes for you, so you can find it super simple and be able to connect with Deb, especially if you know of someone who may be going through something hard in their time and they haven't found their support system or their tribe yet. I strongly encourage you to share this information with them. Deb is just a beautiful person inside and out. So don't forget to make sure that you are paying attention, to make sure that you are being aware of what people are going through, but to also make sure that you are sharing a piece of positive in your life, even in the dark times, because it really does make a difference. So until next time, do one thing positive for someone each and every day and see the difference that it makes in your life. So until next time, have a fantastic day. Hello again, and thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today. If you enjoyed this episode and it brought tons of value, we ask that you please share, like, and subscribe. Your support means the world to us and helps us to reach even more inspiring entrepreneurs who can benefit from these powerful conversations. If you haven't already, be sure to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform, as this feedback is an amazing gift that fuels our growth and helps us to continually improve this podcast. Looking for an extra dose of inspiration and empowerment? Then be sure to connect with me on social media. You can find me at The Lotus Effect, where I share valuable resources and tips while sharing my own journey of being an entrepreneur. And if you're interested in learning more about my coaching programs and services, be sure to check out my website at the-lotus-effect.com. Once again, thank you so much for being a part of Real Chat with Kat. Your presence and support makes all the difference. Remember, whether you find yourself in the depths of the mud or on the path of growth, we all have a unique journey. And just like the lotus, some of us start in the dirtiest of mud, yet as we rise and grow, we blossom into something beautiful, unique, and truly one of a kind. To all of my visionaries out there, keep rising and growing as you create your own Lotus Effect.